Welcome back, Nick Lenz. Comic Corner Classic / Non-Classic. This is episode number 1344 and Doubleshot number 1238. I got, like I said before, 2 more trades. This first one, I don't know why my local library never got this one. They have the 2 trades to click issue from the previous file for the series, but not this one for some reason. A lot of other stuff they collect this, they basically picked up, but not this book for some reason. Maybe because no one wanted to suggest it. I'm not really sure why. This is pretty much. This is the first trade of the collect issues from Spider-Woman. I believe this is volume 6. Yes, volume 6. The current one's volume 7. This one is Spider-Woman, Shifting Gears, volume 1. Baby Talk. Yes. Now, I remember when this image was released 6 years ago. And the biggest question I think everybody asks, who's the father? By the time I finished reading this and the rest of this volume, the question was never answered. Nope. Yeah, it was actually suggested by the industry there's a father out there, but apparently Jessica Drew has no idea who the father is. I'm like, seriously? Now, I get the reason why they did this. Why they made Spider-Woman a mother. Because, well, this is my personal theory. I think someone at Marvel was integrating some stuff from the MC2 universe into the regular comic continuity. I think the first example of this is, besides this book, was actually also in the pages of Astonishing Ant-Man, where they changed Cassie Lang's code name from Straxure to Stinger. That was a code name in the A-Force, in A-Next series. Yep. And this baby is Gary Drew. Yep. And that's what the baby looks like. Now I'm thinking though, Jessica Drew has contact with the Avengers. They probably can get basically a DNA test of pretty much like a lot of the superheroes. Excuse me. Because, well, she had past related with Hawkeye. As far as I can tell, her current boyfriend, the Porcupine, he is not the father. Nope. They don't say if he is the father or not. They just don't confirm it at all. It's a question mark that basically Hopeless himself never bothers to answer. A lot of people waited. Like, basically to answer the question. Who got her pregnant? The answer was never revealed. Unknown the reason for this. Yeah. But this book contains the first 5 issues of Spider-Man Volume 6, along with material from Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4 and number 1. Now you're probably thinking, why is this story in here? Well, there's a reason for that. Because this particular first issue of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, was it 4? No, I think it was 3. It was just Volume 3. This is simply a book that was pretty much there just to be a backdoor palette to a lot of comic books. Yeah, this was Volume 4. Yeah, this helps set up, like, the Miles Morales stuff. This stuff here. I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, Spider-Man 2099. And I think there was also... No, I don't think Ben Reilly. No, there's nothing with Ben Reilly in here, but... So, Jessica, throughout these issues, basically is taking a break. Basically, because she got pregnant. And you see her walking around, basically pregnant. And... then she pretty much leaves all of her superhero duties up with Porcupine, her boyfriend. And, well, then she gives birth on the alien space station. Yep. Which, this alien space station was a hospital in space that was actually infiltrated by the Skrulls. Because, of course, they infiltrated by the Skrulls. And Jessica has got history with them. When she told one of the Skrulls who she is, he's like, "The Spider-Woman! The Slayer!" That is seriously what they did. I thought that was kind of funny. And she also basically is questioned like, what, do you think a bunch of pregnant women be a bunch of Skrulls? For her, yes. The rest of them, probably not. Oh yeah, and this group is just basically part of some group to restore the prince, this Prince Garnek, to the throne, who apparently has got cancer. And Jessica meets him. Apparently he just like, I guess. It's like he just doesn't know he really is or not. He basically is, he's a child. And of course he does this in the birth. And, well, oh, in case you're curious though, Captain Marvel's in these issues, and she was named the Godmother. Okay, makes perfect sense because after all, she is the best friend of Carol Danvers. So why Carol Danvers is Jessica Drew's best friend, so it makes perfect sense. I wonder if Carol was also the godmother to Danielle Cage. I think that Danny Rand, I believe he's the godfather, but the godmother might be Carol Danvers. She is another Jessica that's basically, well, her best friend. That was revealed by the Alias book. Though, interesting thing that comes to that book was originally Jessica Drew was going to be in the book, but apparently Marvel had other plans for the character, so they changed it. So Bendis tried to create his own original character with the first name Jessica Jones. The back when it comes to that. Plus, love this cover. This logo is so good. I love this classic Spider-Woman logo. I'm glad the fact they included it. That's interesting that it comes to Jessica Drew. Like, our logo has never really much changed. Not that much at all. Book is pretty good. Yeah, aside from Dennis Hopeless doing all the writing here, the book is drawn by Javier Rodriguez. Now, for some reason, my local library only got their hands on this trade and this trade right here. The one that debuted her look that she wears on the cover here. For some reason, they didn't pick this one up. I think I did recommend and purchase this thing, but they didn't for some reason. I don't know why. Also, Ben Urich is still a supporting character in the book. Yep, Ben Urich is still here because because Slott didn't care about the classic Spider-Man supporting cast. So, they got basically the pause in other books. If you look curious though, exactly where these characters end up, Ben Urich ended up here. Jameson ended up in the pages of Silk. Of course, Robbie, the Prowler, he of course got on Smith book not long after this. I think it was after Clone Conspiracy. I think it was just before Clone Conspiracy started. He had Julia Carpenter as a supporting character in the book. And I'm glad the fact that Nick Spencer basically has gone back to the classic supporting cast, not just use basically creations of Dan Slott. Because I think a lot of people that read the big problem with this run was that he basically took the classic supporting characters, shoved them aside for his own supporting cast. That was, from what I can tell from some criticism I heard online, that was a lot of people's biggest problem with his run. Was that you barely had appearance with the classic Spider-Man supporting characters. For example, Aunt May was moved over to the Howard the Duck title. I'm not kidding about that. That's where she appeared for a lot of this period of time, during when this book was being published. Yeah, that's where she pretty much appeared. And then once the book ended, she got back to Missing Spider-Man. Yep. Now you're probably curious though, okay, what about the rest of the supporting cast? Well, Urich ended up here. The Daily Bugle itself barely appeared in the book. As a matter of fact, it very rarely appears even nowadays. Maybe some people want to get away from that. It's possible, but who knows? Now, Ben Urich technically was part of the Spider-Man supporting cast, but here, interesting thing about Ben Urich. Now you're probably thinking, like, okay, Ben Urich. You mean the guy who showed up in their movie Netflix show, played by, I think it's like, a guy who's, I think his name Joe Pacici, I think his name is. And you have a black guy playing him on, well, the Netflix series. There's a reason why he's there. Because Ben Urich made his first appearance in an issue of Daredevil, believe it or not. Yes, Daredevil. Which you're probably thinking, wait, he works for Daily Bugle and he first appears in an issue of Daredevil? Marvel Comic Universe. Even though a lot of the time he appears not much in Daredevil nowadays, but a lot more in Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man books that he does in Daredevil. Alright, moving on to a different book. This book is Doctor Strange by Donny Coates. Volume 1, God of Magic. Yes, as you see by the cover, yes, this is the story arc where Loki, the God of Mischief, is Sorcerer Supreme. For about 5 issues. Yep. Now, this is taken from Doctor Strange, issues 381 to 385. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, wasn't the last issue 26? And if Marvel, like it's numbering, why didn't they just count out how many issues there have been? Which basically is about 200, which is less than this. Well, it was explained via card, this was about 4 years ago, that The way they count the numbering is quite strange when it comes to this series. The other series were fine, except for this series and Punisher. Punisher made a lot of sense, except the fact it was a little too low, because they failed to include Volume 5 as part of the numbering for some strange reason. I don't know why. This book went with the numbering of Doctor Strange Volume 1. Not how many issues it put out, but by its numbering. If you're curious though about that book, it was a continuation numbering from Strange Tales, which Strange Tales was later brought back anyways, like not long after the original volume ended, and it picked up where the number left off. And Marvel was like, screw it, let's make this like a really big number, even though it probably is not that high, but okay, fine. Now, it's explained in this book that Loki became the Sorcerer Supreme via some tournament, which he won. It was actually revealed by the end of the storyline the tournament was actually fake. Now, interesting fun fact about the storyline. There's actually an issue of Amazing Spider-Man that is a tie-in to this. And you're probably thinking, really? There is one? Yeah, I think it's like 793. It's a standalone issue, just happened to feature the Loki as Doctor Strange when Spider-Man just visits the Sega Sanctorum. And look, there's Loki as the Sorcerer Supreme. And it's just a one-off issue. He says he owed him a favor. My friend Tivia basically explained to him. I'm thinking, like, what favor did he owe him? Like, when the heck this happened? Apparently it happened when JMS basically was writing, well, Amazing Spider-Man. That's possible. I don't remember what issue it was. Now, as Sorcerer Supreme, basically, when Doctor Strange retired, well, basically stopped being the Sorcerer Supreme, he still basically used magic. Here, he just gave up magic for some reason. Oh yeah, he's grown a full beard, and apparently he's back to being a surgeon. And he's somewhat of a jerk, but not the way he originally was. You see, in the original classic origin story of Doctor Strange, which this classic origin story is still never been altered when it comes to Doctor Strange. There's been slight deviations from the origin story itself, but how he got his hands down, like, basically how he got to Tibet, which basically where, like, a lot of the time, that or some far-off Asian country, that's usually what the original name for it was, but later on it was working out to be Tibet. It was basically the car crash, the fact it was a jerk prior to becoming Doctor Strange. Yeah, all that, basically, for Doctor Strange, that's still canon. Now, yes, the movie itself did its own thing, but still retained the fact he was a jerk prior to becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. Here, he kind of goes back to that, and basically, he goes to visit Loki, just chat with him, and then he gets jealous over the fact Loki is making out with Zelma. She was a character that basically Jason Aaron created, and it's very heavily hinted at that Doctor Strange is in love with her. Despite the fact at one point he was in love with Clea, and now apparently they're no longer together. I'm not really sure exactly what the heck happened. Like, why did Marvel in the 2000s decide to have it where, oh, let's not have Clea and Doctor Strange be together anymore? For some reason. As far as I can tell, I don't remember what comic this happened in. Yes, I've been reading comics for 17 years now, and I don't even know when this happened. I'm not kidding about that. Because, like, if you read like a lot of Doctor Strange comics from the 60s up until the 90s, it's a pretty consistent thing where Steven and Clea are an item, they're in love with each other, and I think it's by the Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme ongoing series, which is technically the third volume of the book, they're actually married. And then by the 2000s, like, not anymore for some reason. Yeah, I'm not really sure why this was. Now, as for Doctor Strange acting the way he does, now if you were a long-time reader of Doctor Strange and knew about basically Jason Aaron's run, you were thinking, why in the world is he basically obsessed over Zelma? Like, why is he jealous? Because Loki is handsome and he looks younger, despite the fact Loki is hundreds of years older and he is way too old. And you're probably thinking Doctor Strange is too old for Zelma. Loki is older than Doctor Strange. Loki is like thousands of years old. He's basically as old as Thor himself. And of course, they had a brawl, like throughout the second half of the storyline. And then Loki activates a spell, like at one point it was inside of Zelma, and then uses the spell to apparently, get this, use magic from another dimension to apparently restore the magic of Earth. Yes, basically the way Donny just undid something Jason Aaron did. Which to me, I think that was a good move on his part because, well, it was probably going to be not a long time. It was not going to be, from what I could tell, I don't think getting rid of the magic of Earth's magic was going to be a permanent thing. I'm sure a lot of people at some point it was going to be restored, and it was not restored when Jason Aaron was a writer. And clearly that John Barber and Dennis Hopeless had no plan to restore it. But Donny swoops in and pretty much undid something Jason Aaron did. I don't think Jason Aaron himself is going to be upset with this because maybe he himself basically knew this was going to be a temporary solution. It's possible, to say the least. Yep, and then Zelma basically just quits being his librarian because, well, not because of his attraction to her. No, that's not the reason. The reason why she quit was because he hid the fact there was a spell inside of her. And the fact she knew some magic. Yep. Now, the thing about this particular set of issues, now, by the way, now, the issues themselves mostly are done by Gabriel Hernandez Walta. Yeah, but the flashback artist for issue 383 is done by Nico Henrock. The artwork in here is not terrible per se. The cover art here is done by Mike Del Mundo, which, yeah, no denying, Mike Del Mundo is a really good artist. Now, this is your interior artwork for these 5 issues. Now, this is not terrible artwork. It's a lot better artwork than I've seen lately for some of my trades. Yeah, well, I can tell these people look like normal people, and this looks like artwork you associate with Doctor Strange because it's weird and bizarre. Yeah. But there's nothing really wrong with the artwork. The artwork is fantastic and fits perfectly with Doctor Strange. Guy handed Danny Coe has picked an artist basically who actually can draw the weird stuff really well. I mean, yes, Jason Aaron, he came on board and he brought in Chris Bachalo for all these issues. In the case of this book, now, I'm surprised Mike Del Mundo doesn't do the interior artwork, and in fact, he's basically known for doing weird style artwork. But he only does the covers. I'm not really sure why that is, but that's basically the gist of it. I give this book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. Fun little factoid about this storyline, aside from the Amazing Experiment tie-in. This book predicted 4 big stories that would come in the next few years. Like, it predicted War of the Realms, Damnation, Infinity Wars, and Final Host. 2 of these events are done by Jason Aaron. Now, in the order that he mentioned, like, first was War of the Realms, Infinity Wars, Damnation, and, like, Final Host. Now, that's quite interesting, though. Danny Cotis himself predicted 4 big events, big stories, that featured Doctor Strange over the course of a 1-year period. Now, the first one that come of these 4 events was Damnation. That was the first one. And then Infinity Wars, and I think it was just after Infinity Wars, it was Final Host, and then finally was War of the Realms. But that is quite interesting, though, for Danny Cotis, to have Loki predict 4 big stories. Now, 3 of these stories would be crossovers. Yep, he predicted 3 crossovers and a story arc for Jason Aaron's Avengers run. Yeah, that's interesting, though. He predicted 2 stories that Jason himself would write, which, that is actually pretty smart of him to do. Okay, yeah, basically, this is what he predicted. The War of the Realms, on Hell on Earth, Damnation, the Gathering of Infinity Stones, the Final Host. And your strongest face them. Things prepared for you. This is like, wow, so interesting though, that War of the Realms is the first one brings up, which Jason Aaron that came, like, 2 years after the story, 2 years after this happened. Damnation, which happened the following year. Gathering of the Infinity Stones, that's Infinity Wars that came not long after this. And Final Host. Yes, the Final Host, a story arc that opened up Jason Aaron's run for the Avengers. Yeah, I have never known a writer who predicts 4 big story arcs, 4 big stories featuring Doctor Strange. I mean, yes. Now, Danny Cohen himself would write one of these events, Damnation. Yeah, he wrote this book like a year after this basically came out. Yeah, it was actually just the following year. Because this story arc came out just after Secret Empire, because after Secret Empire, like, everything had to restore to triple digit number, like, original class number, which that was something for a lot of people that people have been begging Marvel, begging them for years. Bring back the classic numbering. Because that's what people wanted. And they did. But the only problem was some of the books didn't sell very well. This book, I think, sold pretty much fine because people knew that Marvel was going to cancel this book for the Marvel Legacy stuff because Danny Cohen himself. I believe this is actually one of the first books he actually wrote for Marvel Comics, believe it or not. Yes, I believe this was the first book he wrote before he did stuff like Venom or even other books like Guardians of the Galaxy. Yep. Now, the other books that canceled, like, not long after the triple digit numbering started, was, that I could think of, what basically lasted for not a long period of time. Luke Cage was one of the first ones. Of course, the book wasn't selling to anyways. You also had Iron Fist, Generation X, which this book had canceled 2 issues after it was restored to its classic numbering. Yeah, it was just 2 issues. That they did that. Now, the reason why it did that was actually a really good reason why. The book's artwork was atrocious. It was terrible. This book's artwork is actually really good. The only books I could think of that got canceled not long after the triple digit numbering started, aside from, it seems like a lot of the titles got canceled after the first story arc. Like, as soon as the first arc concluded, book was over. Like, this book managed to survive for another 15 issues before it actually concluded. Though it basically put out 2 issues a month, which probably didn't hurt the book very much. I would say, aside from this book, the only books that actually had more than just a handful of issues released before a book was concluded, aside from this book, was Amazing Spider-Man, Avengers, The Punisher, because he had like 11 issues of, well, that numbering, when he restored to numbering, and Immortal Hulk, that one did. That lasted also for 11 issues before. It was actually more. It was Incredible Hulk. Yep. I'm trying to think, was there any other books? No, none I can think of. No, but Legacy was something people wanted, except that the problem was a lot of books were not popular sellers. So Marvel decided, screw it, let's do another relaunch, even though that's not what people wanted. We have fresh start. And this book got taken over by Mark Waid after Nicholas left after 20 issues. Yeah, 20 issues and then he left. Which, that's interesting though. Like, that's the same amount of issues that Jason Aaron had published. Now, a lot of people probably thought as though, when this book was being published, that a lot of people probably thought at the time that this book basically would end like a lot of our books end after the very first story arc under the original classic numbering. Well, if you look at something like Thor, for example, that may have had one story arc, but that was a really good story arc, and it was well earned it. Now, in the case of something like Amazing Spider-Man, this one managed to last for a pretty good period of time, and that was one of the few books that actually lasted more than like 5 or 6 issues. If you look at something like Captain America, that was like 10 issues before it had to restart because of, well, financial stuff. Yeah, it's interesting though that Legacy, despite being some people wanted, was not a big hit for them. No, it wasn't. And a lot of books who got canceled or had hit the restart because of a fresh start. This book, I don't think people have a problem with it because it reached a pretty good number for a hit restarts. 400, mind you. Yes. And I at least appreciate though that Marvel's actually acknowledging that certain books have reached a certain number. Because if you notice, like a lot of the books, except for the X-Men books, have this sort of in the way shadow numbering with it. Basically, like you have this regular number on top, and just below it is the legacy numbering, which I love the fact they did that. I believe Doctor Strange had that when it restarted, right after Nicholas left. But it's interesting though that X-Men doesn't have it anymore. Like they had it for the start of X-Men Volume 5. for like one issue. I think like the only book they had before for that line of books is Wolverine, because recently the book hit 350. Yep. But yeah, not much else to say about 2 trades. They're both really good. Now, in the case of Doctor Strange, as far as I can tell right now, I have exactly 6 books left to get, and I'm pretty much done with this era for Doctor Strange that started back in 2015. Spider-Woman, roughly 2 more trades for this volume, and that's it. Now, I might be thinking of getting the Bendis run. As for in the case of the first one of the series, I don't know what to do for that yet. Because I like talking with Jessica Drew. I just kind of wish my local library would have got this book so I wouldn't have to purchase it myself. Because I had to get these books. Now, Doctor Strange, that was a given because I was reviewing Doctor Strange anyways. Spider-Woman, I mainly got this book because I was getting sick and tired of waiting. I, of course, have been waiting for like 4 or 5 years for my local library to get this book. So I would have to buy it myself. But so I do anyways. But luck out there's not many trades. This one, like Doctor Strange, is a good number of these books. This book, this being the first of this numbering for Donny. I believe this is the 6th volume for this trade for Doctor Strange. Yeah, 6th. I think like overall, let's see, 6 is 9, 10, 11. I think it's like overall 12 books for Doctor Strange. Yep. But yeah, that's it for sick review. Stay tuned to my review for Quintessential Quintuplets. And then that'll be pretty much it for today. Okay? See you in this video. Bye.